What's up, bro? You ready? All right, so we're in the studio in Atmosphere Studios, actually, to be more precise. And I'm sitting out here, and across my chair is a phenomenal artist whose lyrics always impress for sure. He goes by the name of Patrick Jørgensen, and so we just wanted to just talk about not just music, but everything around it also, because that's just as important. Because if we can do that, then we can pretty much emphasize and relate to the art of making music as opposed to just pressing play on a record and just hoping to digest whatever we listen to. So without further ado, yo, Patrick.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm well. It's better to have this conversation with you, I know you've been working. And at the same time you kind of managed to stay away from the spotlight.
Yeah, I've been hiding out for a little bit.
Yeah. How's that journey been like?
I think it's been formative. Gave me both time and space to develop. Gave me time and space to figure out where I want to take this. And whatever I'm left with has taken time to create. And I'm ready for the next chapter to start, I feel like.
Okay.
I'm also excited. Yeah. In general,
yeah, you should be.
It's been a long build-up.
For sure. And did you, in this long build-up and in this, call it hibernation, if you will, did you feel any pressure?
There are different kinds of pressure, I feel like. There's pressure from an audience. There's pressure from family. There's pressure from friends. There's just expectations that come in different shapes and sizes, I guess. There's and also I'm just developing. Like what I wanted a few years ago is not what I want as of right now. And with that said, I just think this time out the game gave me perspective in a way.
It's not your first record. This is not your first record.
No. I believe the first one was in 2017.
Yeah. So what were the expectations then?
Well, I came off of the Million Questions train, that had elevated me, giving me tons of opportunities. And just in 2017 alone, I did about 100 concerts. And so I think my expectations was just tied up in being able to maintain that momentum.
Okay.
And then, obviously, Lifeline was my first album. So it was a huge learning experience. And I learned a lot of things I'm not going to do again. No. But it's just like trial by error, So,
okay.
But then again, I also grew a lot from that experience.
Yeah.
And it took time for me to kind of map out what I wanted this album to be. And it's been an evolution in itself. Because I wasn't sure what I wanted my next album to be at that time, because Lifeline kind of summed up a lot of my experiences up until that point. Mm-hmm. And then I needed actually to live an experience in order to refill my cup with the inspiration needed.
That's interesting, because the next question or something that lingers in my thoughts while you were speaking was that coming back in with this amazing record, by the way, which I've had the pleasure of listening to a couple of things on it. And do you think coming back in your fan base, do you think they're expecting you to stay the same?
I'm at least prepared for people saying that the old Patrick was better or whatever it is, however they'll label it. Mm-hmm. But I'm also aware that the perspective that I'm speaking from is still the same. I'm trying to be as honest as possible, and I believe I was, or that I had the same approach in 2017 when I put out my last album.
But 2017, that's 6 years ago.
I know it's
7 years ago, actually.
Yeah. Don't remind me.
No. No. I actually have to remind you because a lot of things happened to a person in 7 years. I mean, of course, I hate to mention it, we had the virus in 2020, and which pretty much put a whole lot of stagnation in the curve when it comes to growth. But at the same time, it gave you room to sharpen some of your tools, obviously. But you talk about the old Patrick, which creates a good segue to asking, like, why did you get into music?
The reason why I started making music was because I was looking for something to express. Because from a young age, I feel like I've had a lot of things on my mind. Mm-hmm. And I always had a lot of energy and a good outlet to kind of both channel my thoughts and something to pour my energy into. Music was the perfect combination of those two. Okay. And so I feel like that's at least what initiated me pursuing music. And then from a young age, I had role models and people I looked up to that was involved in music. And so it became kind of the blueprint for me to follow.
Who were some of your role models, coming in?
Well, they were... I don't think I can go around this question without saying that Eminem has been a huge inspiration for me. Right. And I remember in 2002, Christmas Eve. Okay. I opened up a gift, and it was the Eminem show. Oof. And from that point on, I don't think I looked back. I don't think I tilted my head in any other direction. And by a few weeks after, I pretty much knew every song by heart.
So the Eminem Show was your first introduction to Eminem?
Yeah, I think it was my first CD that I ever owned.
Wow.
And so it kind of laid the groundwork, I could say. And I know that my style has been heavily influenced by that music. And also I related to both the topics he was talking about and I remember also that very shortly after receiving that album, the 8 Mile movie came out.
Oh my God.
And I guess that was enough to inspire me.
So I think it's kind of cool that you actually say Eminem is your biggest inspiration, and it shows also, obviously, especially when you drop that one track, Million Questions. I can imagine how the world kind of like said to themselves, okay, who is this guy? But then again, did he suck for you sometimes? I know it kind of sucks where people called you the new Eminem or something like that.
Yes. So I think the reason why people draw that comparison is also just a lack of exposure. Like for a lot of the people saying those things, they might not even know they can't name 5 white rappers in the world. You know what I mean? So it's easy for them to put me in that basket. Yeah. And I'm at the same time, I'm kind of flattered because like if someone tries to compare you to someone you consider to be the best in the world, obviously
for sure.
I could choose to take that as a huge compliment, and I can also be degraded by it.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, the first time I heard you, I actually didn't think about Eminem.
No.
That's weird. Like,
but actually, I have a fun fact to mention, like on this topic of inspirations.
Right.
And I don't want to make this bigger than it has to be, but I think my way of approaching how to rap is heavily influenced by Eminem, and I would also say that what I choose to communicate is more inspired by Tupac.
Ooh.
And I know that's two heavy hitters.
Well, you heavy hitters.
But I remember admiring him a lot.
It makes sense.
And his honesty and realness. And I think that's, if I were to define the word realness, I think I learned it through Tupac's music.
I think most of us actually did. And the thing about Eminem also is, I think the reason why I didn't compare you to Eminem is probably because when I listened to Eminem the first time, I thought of someone else. I thought of a rapper called Master Ace.
Yeah, there you go.
And phenomenal rapper, by the way. He's from Philadelphia, I believe. And, I might be wrong, but Master Ace, in my opinion, is one of the best rappers to never become famous, but well known and respected. And he has this one, actually, funny thing is, Master Ace actually has a track with Eminem called Hellbound.
Yeah.
And if you listen to that track, you can actually hear Eminem really
ripping
try.
off his cadence.
Really. I mean, Eminem, of course, without doubt, one of the best rappers to ever exist. But on that track called Hellbound, if you're listening to this podcast or watching this or whatever, just check out Hellbound. It's with Master Ace and Eminem. But then again, let's go back to you and talk about how you're an artist who's coming out of Norway.
Yep.
And we all know English is not the first language here.
No.
Did you at some point think that rapping in English would be at an advantage or a disadvantage?
So growing up here, where we are in Bergen, Norway was my main language of communication. I wrote music in Norwegian. That's how it started out. And then I had 2.5 years where I lived in the U.S.
Right, because your mom was American.
Yes.
Right.
So obviously, like I knew English way better than the average Joe in Norway, and I guess that evolved. But when I came back from having been living in the U.S., that's when I realized that English is a better language to communicate in.
Right.
And obviously, there are words that don't translate. So my vocabulary had kind of expanded on the American side, and it was easier for me to find ways to express.
And you reach more people that way, actually.
I guess that was the main point I was wanting to get to. You have a global audience all of a sudden.
Right. But having a global audience is a good thing. However, I find mostly that if you're rapping in English or doing your text or lyrics in English, ironically somehow, it doesn't really gel well with the Norwegian public.
Say that again?
Like if you're a texter in English,
Yeah.
if you're a quote unquote Norwegian and you live in Norway and then all of a sudden you're rapping in English, even though you might be a phenomenal rapper, why does it also feel like it's not generally accepted? They're not very welcoming to such approach.
I guess it also goes back to people not having the understanding of what you're saying.
Okay.
And especially since we're rapping at 100 miles an hour.
Right.
It's just easy to get lost in it, and where a Norwegian song would hit them differently and they would understand every word. And then all of a sudden you do it in English and they have to concentrate, they have to focus, they need to listen to it 4 times to even get what you're trying to say. And by then they'll have to, analyzing part of that equation comes afterwards.
Exactly, and especially when you drop metaphors and entendres and double entendres, I can understand how people get lost in that mix, right? But if we now look at success, what it takes to be a successful artist, I would like to believe that you've seen, at least to a certain proportion, the heights of success. Coming off Norway Has Talents, you were everywhere. I remember. It was kind of, to be honest, it got to a point where it was really annoying because I couldn't get away from you because I would see you on a day to day and then I would go home and I would see you again on television. And it was like, well, I can't get away from Patrick now. It's, but how do you, going into this new project, right? Do you fear or are you trying to get back to the level of success, or are you at that point where you're just at peace with how things play out?
Let me start by saying that success can mean so many different things.
Here we go.
And it's different for you than it is for me.
Indeed.
And I think success for me, way back when, meant a whole other, I mean, it was a whole other thing back then.
Like what?
But, well, so in 2015, when I was on Norway's Got Talent, I might have been starving for the attention.
Indeed.
As of today, I don't feel the same starvation for it. Like I'm not you're
not driven.
No, but
by it.
It's not what motivates me. Like I'm not putting out this album to get the attention. I'm actually trying to put out this album to change some people's lives. I'm actually trying to introduce people to new ideas.
Inspire.
Exactly.
Okay. So in other words, there's more pressure on you as opposed to external pressure coming from outside.
Yeah, and I also do believe that I have relieved myself of a lot of that pressure.
Okay.
By not saying anything for such a long period of time. Like, it's the drawing board is.
But how do you do that, though? I mean, for people watching right now, because a lot of people, because that kind of leads us into the question of how relevant social media actually is. You know, for a long time, I know you were very on social media.
Yeah.
You know, you were on that, and I think it's a good platform to connect with people. Absolutely, we're not taking that away from anyone. And all of a sudden, you just like flip the switch and boom, done, out. You know.
Well, I think 2016, 2017, 2018, I posted an average of 3 pieces of content every day.
Wow.
And then for the past 2 years, I think I've posted 3.
Did you have a team?
I did have people involved in the mix along the way, and depending on what was going on at the time.
Right.
So I had trips back and forth to the U.S. Probably 3 or 4 times a year. Some of those trips I had someone following, recording, taking photos, doing videographic stuff. And other times I traveled alone. So, but there's been people in and out of the mix, and it shouldn't be unsaid that I'm very grateful.
Oh, for sure. You have to be. Absolutely. And of course, people have lives. Things happen. You know, people drift, people grow, people change, and that's what it is.
But I think the turning, anyways, just to wrap up what I was saying, it was COVID hit, and it kind of put a stop to everything.
Yeah, that one. The years.
But, I mean, it's a huge topic, so we don't need to go into detail about that chapter as of right now. But I just wanted to say that that's kind of where it all shifted for me, because all of a sudden, like, posting 3 pieces of content from your own apartment is not as interesting as living a vibrant life where you're out meeting people every day and doing stuff all the time. So it was just hard to maintain, and at the same time, looking back at it, it kind of gave me time to take a step back and reevaluate and try to refocus.
You mentioned in 2017 you did about 100 concerts.
Yeah.
Give or take. And lately I don't really see you on stage as much, you know, as obviously 2017, like you mentioned. What would you say, is there a particular reason for that?
Well, I think there's more than one layer to this. But let me start it off by saying, or repeating what I said earlier.
Okay.
I'm not doing this for the attention. And I feel like sometimes being on stage requires you to want to hold people's attention. Where I'm okay with being silent in a room as of today. I like being more in the background. I like not standing out too much. Like, and I do believe that's just a consequence of, I guess, being the center of attention whenever you walk into somewhere is exhausting. And then all of a sudden, when that's the case, then you miss being able to just switch off and be anonymous.
Right. Right.
And so I think,
Right.
but it also goes down to comfort. But your question was, why is it that I'm not doing as
Live
many
performances,
performances
right.
as of right now? And what I wanted to say as the second point there was the feeling that comes after being on stage.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know that it actually takes its toll when you go on stage, you know. I'm guessing you're trying to say something about the loneliness of it.
Well, I mean, it's such a rush to be on stage, and then coming back down to earth. That fall is can be brutal, especially on a bad day, or even on a good day. You know.
And you got to get back up and do it again
Yes.
and do it again.
And also, it's I've had the pleasure of doing a lot of shows in a lot of different crowds. And I think as my artistic career developed from 2015 to 2018, the crowd that I performed for changed a lot.
They've matured.
Yes.
They've
And
grown.
all of a sudden, I found myself in rooms where the songs that I had performed earlier didn't hold any value.
Okay.
And what I'm trying to say is, I was all of a sudden at conferences with business people, with people that work within leadership, and all of a sudden, when I have a specific set of songs that was meant to entertain teenagers or like speak, didn't speak as much volume as I hoped it would.
So which makes a lot of sense, because I think curating music also involves at some level or at some point having an idea of your audience. I feel maybe as artists, when we write a track, we can always say that we're writing from the heart and not necessarily thinking about who we're performing this for. However, when reality hits, you know, you come in real life and you realize, oh, I do need an audience or a specific kind of audience. In my case, as an artist myself, I think one of the reasons why I don't play that many live concerts is because I feel like I respect my art too much to just play in front of any crowd. You know, like if you're making music that makes sense, you know, lyrically heavy based tracks like you do, then it's safe to say that you need a certain kind of audience to do it in.
And we spoke upon the understanding and everything. And for me to be vulnerable and pour my heart and soul into practicing and making sure that every word is performed in the right way, and then have an audience that is left more confused than informed, you know.
Yeah.
It can be frustrating as well.
For sure.
I'm not taking everybody, putting everybody in one basket here, but sometimes leaving stage, you might be left with that feeling.
Most of the times you will be left with that feeling because you're creating from a place of substance.
Yeah.
And most of the times the person watching in a random room, you know, but majority of the time they don't really know what substance is. They used to, I mean, I define rap as rhythm and poetry, right? And in the global space in which we find ourselves, or maybe not global space, in the space in which we find ourselves, i.e. Norway, I always define rap as rhythm and pop.
Yeah.
And that's just because I feel like a lot of people are not really paying attention to what you're saying lyrically.
But on that note, I feel like a lot of people who's listening might be thinking, not even know what rap stands for. Would you mind?
And that's the reason why I said rap stands for rhythm and poetry.
Yeah.
But in a space like Norway, I would say rap stands for rhythm and pop.
Gotcha.
So when I meet a lot of artists all the time, and like I'm a very lyrical based artist, right? I'm very conscious about that. And it's not something I just say, this has to be lyrical. It's just how I am, right? And then we create records of that nature. But luckily for me, I am aware of the fact that most people don't know that rap stands for rhythm and poetry. And most people don't know that most of the music coming out of Norway is rhythm and pop, which means it's not the lyrics that we're listening to, it's mostly the sounds that they're listening to. So people don't really pay attention to what you're saying lyrically. They're more trying to figure out what this music sounds like because they don't have the time to dissect your lyrics.
True. And also, like, and not lyrics might not be everybody's cup of tea.
True
Like,
that.
everybody's listening experience is individual. And I know that when I listen to music, words are what hit me first.
Right, exactly. You,
But
you,
to
you,
other
you're
people,
into
the
the rhythm and
bass line might
poetry.
be like the highlight of the song.
Right.
And for a third person, it might be the melody. So it can
Yeah.
vary, and the combinations and knowledge and level of knowledge that people have varies.
Well, would you say that it could be a bit frustrating then, given the fact that you're more into the rhythm and poetry side of things?
Yes, it
Can be.
it is. Especially when you've put out a song, and the first question you get after having put it out is, "What is the song about?"
I think for me, the most first one of the, to add on to what you said, for me, it's when you. That's why I'm really careful who I show my music. You know, some people you show music, and the first 10 seconds or 20 seconds.